Hi guys, Jasmine here. So I wanted to do another video talking about DBS programming and how to make the most out of your DBS programming. So here is Parkinson's 101 number 3, how to make the most out of your DBS appointment. So DBS programming. Before I get into some of these tips and tricks, I'll just tell you a little bit about my experience. I feel like I can talk about this pretty well because I got a great program on the first try. Almost the first try. My doctor was amazing, so shout out to Dr. Nanavati for being awesome and for getting my program so well on the first try. Then we've just had to make some pretty small tweaks some pretty small tweaks from there. But she just did such a great job. And from my experience and from some of the experiences of my friends has really not been that. I mean, sometimes it takes people even up to a year to get the right program. And really it shouldn't. And I think there's a couple things that I think I can tell you about here that would really help to get it done faster, because nobody should really wait that long for a good result on DBS if it's possible for them. And so, first of all, I want you to understand how exactly DBS works. I'm sure everyone watching this knows the basics of DBS: battery, wire, electrodes. They if you see an x-ray of somebody with DBS, the electrodes go past the eyes, they're this long, which is pretty freaky and pretty cool. And so you're either stimulated, if you have Parkinson's, you're pretty much either stimulated in the STN or the GPI, which is the subthalamic nucleus, or the globus pallidus internus, GPI, or STN. So the STN stimulation is typically done for people who have tremor dominant. There's sort of two sides to Parkinson's. There's kind of the tremor dominant folks, and then there's the rigid dyskinetic, or the rigid bradykinetic folks who it's super slow movements and more muscle issues, whereas the tremor dominant folks, it's pretty obvious we're tremor dominant. I have GPI stimulation because I am totally bradykinesia dominant. My body just before DBS was so slow. I had to drag it along. I have a lot of rigidity. Both of these, they've pretty much shown to be kind of equal for rigidity. They both really help rigidity. Just because my rigidity was awful. And then I do have dystonia as well. Not everybody with Parkinson's gets dystonia, but I had pretty bad dystonia. So that's why we chose to stimulate GPI. GPI is done less often than STN, but it's sort of from the trend that I've just seen from people I know, it's becoming more and more done, or more common. Which is good, I think, because it definitely has some benefits if you have a certain type of Parkinson's. So that's what I had done. And why it's important to know which ones you have is really because, your surgeon should tell you why they did this. Also, STN is good for med reduction. That's another thing about it, which I kind of wish GPI did more of. But anyway, so that's what site you had stimulated is important. And then the most important thing with programming, people always talk about the voltage. What's actually a lot more important than the voltage itself is the pulse width and pulse time. So if you don't know what that means, people a lot of times think with DBS it's a constant electrical signal. It's not at all. Because electrons need time to switch their orientations, which is kind of what's happening. And I really won't get into the quantum mechanics of that, but I could tell you. But so think about it this way, mine is 60-60, so 60 seconds of zapping and 60 seconds off. So think of it as a constant 60 seconds of electric shock, and then a pause for 60 seconds, and then 60 seconds again, and pause. During that pause, there's lots of fun things going on in the electron world, well, not I said, I'm not going to go into, but that's really important because they can change a lot of things with that. They can change the pulse width and pulse time, and what your pulse width and pulse time is going to change how the program affects you, and that's really important. If you have changed the position of the program, well, I should have actually said that first. The DBS electrode itself, okay? The DBS electrode has 4 leads, so it's way smaller than this, but imagine this was your GPI or STN, okay? And on this segment that's actually inside of the body are 4 electrodes. And so you have, the bottom one, the second, and the third, and the fourth electrode. That's really important because they can change which one you use. For example, my DBS, my right side of my brain that controls the left side of my body is on the bottom electrode, And the left side of my brain that controls the right side of my body is actually on the third electrode. So they're different. Even within somebody, they can have them on 2 different levels. So if your doctor is just programming one of them and you're not getting good results, you can say, what about if we try the other electrodes? There are 4 in there. And, if your doctor didn't tell you that and your doctor isn't trying all 4 of them, your doctor is lazy. And you should tell them they need to keep trying. Seriously. So, that's that. So the other thing they can change besides the position, the 1, 2, 3, 4. Something interesting the Medtronic rep told me. She said from what she had seen, that the top 2 are typically better for upper body symptoms and the bottom 2 electrodes are better for lower body symptoms. They don't know if that's true. That's just sort of a trend that they're kind of seeing. Which is interesting because with me, my right side of my body has a worse arm. My right arm was worse than my left arm. And my left leg was way worse than my right leg. So on the right side, it was more of an upper body thing that was really, really inhibiting me. And on the left side, my lower half of my body was a lot worse. Which is kind of interesting because that's the way that they were laid out. Is that a coincidence? It could be, but that's just something interesting. So if you have upper body symptoms, maybe you want to say, what about the top 2 electrodes? Anyways, so that's sort of what I think is important to understand and to talk to your doctor and make sure your doctor is doing about, the actual physiology of the DBS. Now that we talked about that, here's what you can do as well. When you go into your doctor's appointment, it's really important to be very aware and mindful of your symptoms. Now, your doctor is going to be looking at your body and is going to be saying, in your doctor's head, okay, I see a lot of rigidity in the arm, I see tremors. What I'm going to look for when I program, I say, let's just go with tremors. That's a pretty easy thing. So say you have a pretty bad tremor. What your doctor's going to look for when they tweak your DBS is to see how much your tremor reduces. So they turn it up, your tremor's pretty bad, okay. Then they turn it up a little bit and your tremor's a little slower, okay, they turn it up a little more and your tremor's good. Yeah, that's what they're going to look for. But you should also come in with a good, having at least spent some time outside of your appointment really thinking about your symptoms. Because the more you know about the symptoms, the more you're going to be able to relate your symptoms to your doctor, which is important. Because, things are different at different times of the day. Things don't always show up in the doctor's office that do at home. And sometimes things aren't really seen. Like, you might have a certain pain, or you might have, just some internal tremors, for example. Like, I get internal tremors, and you can't see those. Internal, duh, you can't see that, but some of the times the DBS programming really helped my internal tremors. But I was able to tell my doctor that, but she couldn't see it. So it's important to note some of those things so that you know. Also, be loud in your doctor's office. Like, if something feels strange, tell them. And if something feels good, tell them. Like, you really, when you're programming your DBS, part of it is on you. You really have to be communicating and being really mindful of your symptoms and how they're changing and how they're responding. Also, if you're somebody who has had DBS and you had it programmed and you're going back to your other programming, really think about your symptoms too. For example, I spend a lot of time thinking about the rotation of my body, which sounds really weird. But for example, I have a really easy time turning this way and a really hard time turning this way. So that is something that I really want to talk about in my next DBS programming, because I think that's part of that has to do with the right side of my body. Like, I just think that I have a hard time rotating it that way, and I want to see if there's something we can do DBS-wise about that. But things like that are important, and those are the kinds of things that your doctor isn't going to notice just from observing you for 5 minutes. So when you're going between DBS appointments, just think about what you really, if you already have a good programming, think about what really that you need to, or that you would like to change, that you notice. And remember, not everything can be changed with DBS, but if it can be, it's good to ask, and it's good to know, and it's good to know where your discrepancies are. For example, I have a really hard time walking backwards or with my eyes closed. And I kind of don't think that's anything DBS can fix. But still, it's good to know. It's good to know where your strengths and weaknesses are, and it's good to know what your body's doing and how you're doing. Keeping a little log of how you feel if something comes up. Also, medication is important. After DBS, if you get a really good DBS programming and it's kind of like your first thing, you might notice that you go to take your medications and you get a ton of dyskinesia because all of a sudden your medications are too strong for you. That's happened to people. That did happen to me a little bit, but then I had to go back up for a little bit. And that's just your body. The thing about DBS is it's really weird. I mean, they're shoving electrodes into your brain and zapping you with electricity. Like, it's really freaking weird. And nobody really completely understands how it works. I always joke that, like, I really want to know who the first person who said, yeah, I'll try that was, because I wouldn't have said yes. You're gonna shove electrodes in my brain and zap my brain? Like, it's really a crazy idea. But nobody really knows exactly how it affects everything. So remember that, because I mean, it might have different effects on you. For example, like when they're turning it up, one of the things that I feel is I always feel a tingle in these fingers. And they ask you if you do feel any strange tingling in your body. That's what they always ask you when they're turning this up, and almost always I feel something. And it goes away after a day or two, but they also say, like, I mean, if it hung around for like a week, I'd be concerned, things like that. But really, really be in tune with your body and knowing how it works and what's going on there. And also just keep thinking about how you feel when it's happened, like for the first couple days, if it's the same a couple days later. Or if sometimes things wear off. It's just be really, really mindful of your body and keep a good log, so that way you can relay these things to your doctor, because it will help them when they're programming. And so that's kind of, I think that pretty much summarizes my advice. But my last advice I'll tell you, if your programming if you're just having a really hard time and it's just not working and you've tried a couple times, ask for a Medtronic rep. People don't seem to know that you can do that. Medtronic is a really helpful company, and they will send somebody to your doctor's appointment who all they do is program DBS. And they can really help your doctor, because your doctor who gets a training in DBS gets a couple training sessions, and then they go see patients. And some doctors are good at it, and some are not. And some are good at it, and they just need a little help because you might be a tricky patient. But yeah, you can ask for a Medtronic rep, and they'll send one to your doctor's office. And I had a friend who I told her to do this, and it helped her. She got a much better setting. Also, if it's your first programming, ask your doctor if the Medtronic rep is going to be there on the first time, because they might as well be there the first time too. It's not an offense to your doctor to have them there. If it is, then your doctor needs to check their ego. That's really my opinion, because it's one thing that they do out of a ton of things, and this is somebody who is trained by Medtronic, and all they do is DBS. It's important. They're made to do that, and working together. My doctor was so great with working with this rep. Like, watching them go back and forth was really awesome. They were talking out loud. They're like, well, what if we tried this? Do you think that, maybe I think you should try this for her. They were collaborating. And two minds collaborating together is always better than one, no matter how smart you are. And like I said, if your doctor doesn't do that, they have an ego problem they need to check. So it's important. So have a Medtronic rep come if they don't, or if you're having a hard time, or if you just want somebody to come on your next one. It's free. It's there. Use it. So that was my advice on DBS programming and how to make the most out of your DBS appointment. I hope you guys found it helpful. And good luck out there to everybody who's going through DBS. I hope you all have amazing success, because DBS is the surgery that really changed my life. And speaking of that, I need to charge this. So I need to charge my DBS battery. So bye for now, and thank you so much for watching.